The mayor is running behind this morning, so I will get this work session started. Madam Administrator.
Thank you, Commissioner Garrett, and commissioners, to those of you that are present, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. As you know, Augusta's SPLOST is a key funding source for many of the capital projects that we complete throughout our city. Within your folders, you should have our current SPLOST offerings from SPLOST 3 through SPLOST 8. Today, we are here to plan for SPLOST 9, and this planning session is extremely important to ensure the direction of the commission is clearly presented when the departments make their presentations concerning various SPLOST projects. While I've already sent out emails to the department heads asking for them to start thinking about what projects they would like to include, there are a couple of things we would need your direction on to ensure that SPLOST 9 is successful. I would like for you to consider SPLOST 9 us planning for about $300 million in revenue from SPLOST 9, and that's for the 6-year period that we are projecting collections to begin. Keep in mind that SPLOST 8 was originally planned for about 6.5 years. You may recall recently we revised it and cut off about 18 months simply because collections were coming in a lot swifter than what we had originally anticipated. At the same time, SPLOST 8 topped a little more than $250 million. Augusta still has several projects that are out and about because collections won't end till probably towards the end of 2020, maybe about the summer of 2026. Again, that is an estimate. At the same time, if we plan for $300 million for 6 years, this should give us a strong slate of projects to be able to complete for a 6-year period of time. One of the first things we need to decide is a focus. In years past, the focus have been different things. I would like for you to consider, number one, infrastructure. We've had multiple conversations regarding flooding, regarding roads and bridges that need to be repaired, that need to be maintained, as well as our streetscapes would also fall under infrastructure to include Augusta utility projects, although many of Augusta utility projects will be funded out of the most recent approved $90 million bond. But at the same time, or is it $80 million? 90 or 80? 80. I gave it an extra 10 million, excuse me. $80 million bond that was recently approved by the commission. I would also like you to consider 1A being facilities. Central Services Department, which is the department that is responsible for maintaining our facilities, did not receive much in SPLOST 8 by way of funding. As you've seen, many of our facilities are in need of repair. Some are in need of demolition and new construction. Some projects were partially funded in SPLOST 8, which did not allow us enough funding to even finish the project or even begin the project in SPLOST 8. And so you will see some of those projects added to SPLOST 9. So, Commissioner Garrett, I would like to open the floor concerning those two pathways regarding a priority of one being infrastructure and 1A being facilities.
I don't disagree with what you're recommending. Definitely want to focus on infrastructure, but I definitely think that the body up here has seen the need for facility needs as well. Commissioner Guilfoyle?
Yes. I know it was neglected on the last SPLOST, is the fact that we need to make sure that our first responders is taken care of. We ended up having to fund the trucks, fire equipment through the general fund, and it'll be a good time as well as for the Sheriff's Department to be funded through the SPLOST package as well. I know that I agree with the facilities such as boathouse, marina. The animal service building is going to need to be rehabbed. We got the stadium that's going to need a big function. A lot of help in there. And we're going to have some projects, hopefully, that District 6 Commissioner, District 8, 5, 4, to come up with something for out there in South Richmond County.
Well, I think that, as you're mentioning some of the southern parts of the county, I think we definitely need to focus on a sewer project as well.
That's right.
You know, if you look at some of the projects that we've potentially lost because of lack of sewer in the southern parts of the county, I think that that's definitely needs to be a focus as well.
Yeah, but as far as for our engineering, their needs and their wants, our biggest issues that we have is, like you said, Mayor Pro Tem, is the infrastructure, but we also got roads, stormwater issues, even though stormwater ain't taking care of it for some reason. But I like whatever we do on this SPLOST package, at least, you know, let's look at putting half of it into engineering. So that's the people that we are going to lean on the most.
All right. Anybody else have any comments? Madam Administrator, I see that you handed us a folder with some, looks like some background on the SPLOST phases 3 through 8. Could you kind of walk us through what we're looking at?
Sure. So I wanted you to get a historical perspective as to what projects were funded in the past. And this does just that. It would also give you a glimpse if you quickly turn to SPLOST 8, which is our most recent SPLOST. It was approved in 2021. That gives you the most current glimpse as to what we are functioning under today. And SPLOST 8 starts on page 9. Thank you.
Well, before you get too far into that, can we just start at the top and kind of go through, it looks like there's some potential balances that I'm not sure if you want to discuss that now or
I can.
or if finance wants to discuss it, that's fine too.
Yes, we can jointly discuss it and go through 3. Finance, would you please pick up from 3 to 7, and I'll pick up with details for 8.
Good morning.
Hey, Tim.
The list you have is just where we're currently at with what projects. This is preliminary for year end. We're still working on our year end process, so some of these balances will change in the final. And what the next step we usually do is go back to the departments and say, have you closed any of these projects out? So some of these balances may go away. This is just what has been spent on in 2023. You have the prior costs. So as you can see, SPLOST 8 is getting towards the end of its life.
SPLOST 3?
SPLOST 3.
You said 8.
I'm sorry, SPLOST 3.
I know, numbers are hard.
They are. Is getting towards the end of its life. Hopefully we can close that out in the next year or so. SPLOST 4, again, most of these projects are, some of these projects like Wrightsboro Road are funded from multiple phases. So it's hard, you know, you look at SPLOST 4 and Wrightsboro Road, there's a little bit left, but that's an integral part to get the entire project funded.
Right.
SPLOST 5, again, it's getting towards the end of the projects. Again, the big one that's sitting out there is Wrightsboro Road. Excuse me.
Mr. Schrader, I would like to go back for a brief moment.
Sure.
If you take a look at SPLOST 4,
Yes.
the Rocky Creek Drainage Project has a balance at December 31 of 2023 of about $2.6 million. You may recall that project is not fully funded. We've requested federal dollars. We've submitted various grants for it to ensure that the Rocky Creek project can receive the additional funding that's needed. Because Rocky Creek is a large landmass area, it has also been included on the SPLOST 9 listing for further infrastructure improvements.
Thank you.
Sure. Marshall, I can tell you the dollar amounts, but I really can't tell you where the project is at in the process. That would be more the user departments. SPLOST 6, again, you can see some of the bigger projects that have multiple years of funding, they're still sitting out there. that the departments are working on. None of the years, we haven't seen anything that brought our attention that something is going wrong. Some of the departments, again, are funded for multiple sources. So while they're spending, the projects are moving forward, they're coming out for engineering. In fact, for example, you have LMIG, TIA, STIP, and then part of it's also funded out of SPLOST. So while it may look like nothing's happening, it's just the funding is coming from a different source.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And SPLOST 7, again, we're looking at some multiple funding sources.
So some of these items that we're looking at, especially like when we're talking about some of these public service vehicles that are showing balances, as we're planning, I think it would be a good idea to at least have in mind the vehicles that haven't been replaced and
Now,
just what some of those balances are on the past SPLOST.
I would like to point out, on SPLOST 8, that's the total budget. And we're only 2 years into collections. So some of these projects don't have the funding available yet.
Okay.
So that's why you see some of these bigger balances, and it may look like, well, why haven't we spent it? But they are spending. I know Fleet Services does a great job with the constraints that they have with the funding, and we can get a list of vehicles that have been replaced and need to be replaced for you.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, I don't have a lot. 2 or 3 comments. One, I would like for us to decide early on, if we're going to allow outside entities to be a part of our SPLOST package. You know, you got the Jewish entity out there. You've got the mini theater out there. You've got other folks out there that want money. So I think as a
Would you put those in the same category as like the CVB or Canal Authority or things like that? Or how should we look at those differently?
well, I think those are pretty much a part of what we do.
So you're talking about just strictly NGOs?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I think we need to get together and decide early, because I've got some folks that I would like to, if we are, but if we aren't, then I won't suggest anybody. Also, I heard within the last week or so that there's an entity. How much money do we have for that Rocky Creek quote-unquote project?
2.6 mil.
Well, she said 2.6, but I've heard as high as $8 million.
Yes, sir. It's definitely, I was going to say about 7.5, because Rocky Creek recently received federal funding as well. So the dollars represented in SPLOST plus additional funding for the congressionally directed spending, as well as grant funds. So I would think it would be more than about 7.5 million. But in speaking with Dr. Malik, additional dollars are still needed for the project.
Well, I've heard within the last week or so that there's an entity that wants to buy that area that we're talking about with Rocky Creek, much of the land. So if we were to, I understand something's going to come through planning and zoning pretty soon. So if somebody else were to buy it or use it or what have you, then we could take that money and, I don't know, do a boathouse. I'm not sure. But my main comment was about the NGOs. Let's decide early on about whether or not we're going to allow NGOs to be a part of this. Last one we didn't. This one, I don't know what the thoughts are, as well as, you know, each of us has little pet projects within our districts that we want to do that we'll be throwing in the pot. So thank you.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Guilfoyle?
Yes, in response to, I appreciate Commissioner Williams bringing up about the NGOs. I prefer NGOs. We shouldn't consider NGOs because it's going to put this SPLOST package at risk. It happened one time before, I believe, SPLOST 7, and then we ended up having to revamp it and going out, wait 6 months and to go out for 7B. And the people spoke loud and clear as far as when it comes to NGOs. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for bringing that up.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a bit of a different view on that. I know the SPLOST 7 NGOs was a little different because NGOs were put in that package, and there was very little conversation from the colleagues about how those NGOs wound up there, which is why I think the people voted against it, because there was no transparency. But we have an opportunity to have that conversation publicly, and we have an opportunity to do it in a transparent way. I look at nonprofits a little bit differently. When you look at people like the Miller Theater, the Imperial Theater, we have an opportunity through SPLOST, if we wanted to go that route, to create a cool theater district, create something that could connect entities together. I know we talked about for some years about a museum district to where we could create some type of city pass to go from museum to museum like they do at Atlanta. I just think that nonprofits, not all nonprofits, of course, but some nonprofits would have a unique opportunity to help Augusta increase its quality of life category. And so if we do go down the route of having nonprofits in the SPLOST package, which I think would be a great idea, we're talking $300 million. Supporting them with some nuggets here, there wouldn't hurt the entire package as long as we be transparent with it. There ought to be some type of process that they go through, an application process, a screening process. I'm not sure what's been used in the past, but to just make this just a straight government package, I think would be a disservice to the community when you have certain nonprofits out here actually trying to increase the quality of life. Now, we're not talking about parade money. I'm not talking about, program administration. We're talking about actual things that can increase quality of life, whether that's cool projects or creating districts or something. I'm not sure, but I don't think that we should completely rule out nonprofits, especially if we agree to do it in an open and transparent manner. Thank you, sir.
All right. Administrator, in regards to some of the entities that are tied to this government, such as the Canal Authority, Destination Augusta, the airport, other things like that, what is their process on submitting projects for SPLOST?
They would submit similar to a department.
And what is the time frame for them?
Well, the timeframe hasn't been set because, again, this is just our preliminary meeting. But once we send out the SPLOST package reports, they are included in that.
Okay.
And many of them have already submitted their requested items that they would like included for consideration. I would suggest that you allow me to task our finance department with doing some market rate studies to determine industry best practices. I'm particularly concerned with how we account for NGOs. I do know that they were included in 7, not included in 8. There may be some financial ramifications behind if it is in Augusta's best interest to include them or not to include them. But because this is our first planning meeting, finance will have time, maybe within the next 30 to 45 days, to present that information for consideration.
No, I definitely think that's a good way to take a look at it. But then again, I think when Commissioner Williams and I were talking, we look at the Destination Augusta a little differently than an NGO. So
that's right, and we do as well.
Okay.
So when you say NGOs, we definitely understood that to not include Augusta's authorities that are closely related. Okay. I would like to give you all some perspective. SPLOST 8 administration received over $900 million in requests. And keep in mind that package ended up being a little over $250 million. When I sent out the first request for projects to the department heads, those requests totaled over $675 million. Again, and I'm proposing a package of about $300 million. So there's going to be a lot of cuts, a lot of squeezing. We'll do our best to pare that listing down before we present it to you. But some of the highlights I would like to I thought I saw Mr. Sneed. Okay. Mr. Sneed is here. While you do not need to give a presentation unless the commission has questions, I did want to run down a list of several projects that are considered hot button projects that I wanted to make sure you were aware of. Things like, of course, we've already talked about the jail pods for for Charles B. Webster. We've talked about the boathouse. There's still some determination that needs to be made on how extensive you want to view that project. Juvenile court, fleet, as well as RCCI was funded in SPLOST 8, but those projects represent dollars that were not funded in its full capacity, meaning those projects can't even kick off because they do not have enough money to complete them. The Lake Olmsted barbecue pit, May Park, although they have received grant dollars, they still do not have enough to complete, again, the facility itself. Putting some investments into our cemeteries to ensure that they too do not flood. The Augusta Canal has requested $25 million for a canal water park. This is a white water park, which now leads me to the $5 million that was approved in SPLOST 8 for our water park. That, of course, we all know that $5 million is not enough money to get a water park off the ground, and so decisions would have to be made. How do you want this project sought after? What was your plan back when it was approved versus have your plans changed now? Another item.
That one was definitely slated for South Augusta, and I think it needs to stay there. And, you know, I definitely think that's something that the commission also needs to take a look at. You know, when that $5 million was put in SPLOST, it was stated as seed money for potential partners, and I don't think we've gotten an update since we started collections on trying to find a partner, have we?
No, we have not.
So,
Nor am I aware of an update. As you know, there's been some recent changes within the department. In speaking with staff, they are not aware of an update. So I think with the decision on yesterday made to move forward with possibly recruiting for a department director, that will be a great opportunity to not only utilize AEDA for assistance as well as Parks and Recreation for a plan.
Yep. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Question for our administrator. When we come forward with ideas and suggestions, should we keep in mind the whole idea of like projects being shovel ready, or is this our opportunity to just kind of sit on Santa's lap, so to speak?
Well, I would
terrible
definitely
way of explaining that, but you know, just
no, I
the
understand.
news will enjoy it.
I would definitely think that these projects would be those grand scale projects because this is Augusta's main funding source for our capital improvements. Yet at the same time, because I am recommending that this project package is $300 million, there's going to be a lot that's going to be cut. And so once we start paring down that listing, that's the reason why I'm asking the commission, and I'll present it as an agenda item as well, that the SPLOST 9 priority package will be focused on infrastructure and facilities. Now, of course, Parks and Recreation from a quality of life standpoint will still be included, as well as other public safety projects and even economic development projects will be included. But just in hearing from you, accepting my recommendation, while I know it's not binding today, I do think it is a strong direction for Augusta's future.
And when we say facilities, we're just talking about fixing what we have, or we're talking new facilities?
A little bit of both. Some facilities could afford an overhaul. You may recall, I think it was 2018 or 2019, HCD moved out of their lease space on Laney Walker. They were supposed to be included in SPLOST 8 for facility improvements in the old DFAX building. That never occurred. So if you've ever been to the DFAX building of old, it still looks the same way, just with new paint on the walls. But that is one facility that would need to be renovated versus building a new facility. In speaking with the coroner just this morning, he also needs another facility. I'm not necessarily saying he needs a new facility, but his facility either needs some upgrades or even he's open to the purchase of another facility.
Gotcha. I just want to always keep in mind that Augusta needs a wow factor. And, every time these SPLOST opportunities come up, it's an opportunity for us to present some type of wow factor for the community. And I like the infrastructure idea because we all have infrastructure projects that we want to push for, and I'm sure we're going to support each other's infrastructure ideas. But let's keep in mind that wow factor. Like, what is it that we can put in motion that could transform Augusta? You know, we know that we want to maintain our facilities, and we're going to get there. But how can we set Augusta apart in the region as being a region leader with some type of wow project? I think that the Riverwalk should be at the front of our conversation as well. How do we put some of this money towards making our Riverwalk a world-class destination? So let's keep in mind something wow factor.
Wow.
Wow.
And to add to that, Commissioner Johnson, the Riverwalk improvements is on the list currently, as well as the expansion of the current bike trail along the levee. As you know, it stops sort of around, what street is that?
Fifth.
Help me out. Fifth? It stops at Fifth? Yes, it stops at Fifth Street at the bridge, but it has the potential to loop all the way around the levee up to the airport.
Finney Swamp.
Finney Swamp, thank you.
Which
There
would
ha-
connect South Augusta to downtown.
There we go. Hepzibah High School.
And just for a little clarity, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm talking more so about something like a big development for the riverfront. We know like the improvements and maintenance is going to be huge.
Well, I've actually placed on our next legal agenda an update on the depot property.
Yep.
It's been a long time since we've heard anything on that.
Yep.
So, I mean, speaking of riverfront properties.
It's prime.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Something big, yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you. As far as the Rocky Creek project that we got going on, that's actually a flood control, which ties into North Lake, Gordon Highway, Deansbridge Road. So that's something we might not want to try to alter. I think the property that when we was in that breakfast meeting with the land bank or whoever it was, with the owner of Regency Mall, I think they wanted to obtain a parcel of that land, not the entire Rocky Creek Basin, which goes from Willis Road to Gordon Highway. As far as the administrator stating that you had over $300 million in requests, or $800 million, I'm sorry, can you forward that to us so we can look at it as well?
Which,
You had
SPLOST 8.
requests from different departments, et cetera.
This is from SPLOST 8, those are the initial requests.
oh.
Yeah, it was,
9.
You want the requested list from SPLOST 8, all of what was
Or
requested?
this splosh right here.
no,
Didn't
no,
you
no, it was SPLOST 8 that 900 came in and we.
Oh, okay.
And we
Never mind.
whittled it down to 250.
Okay. All right. Just to make sure that ain't this one.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to leave anything out. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any comments up here or Administrator?
Commissioner, I would also recommend, or it is in our estimate, that collections will begin January of 2027 with a proposed projected vote November of 2025. So we will start to have these meetings periodically as information starts to come in. At the same time, I am also requesting your support in, when I send out my email, it will be a requirement for department directors to submit the SPLOST planning worksheet that goes along with each request. This is vital to ensure that we're able to communicate through transparency with the citizenry that they know what each project will detail. In the past, we've received requests that could be as bland as facility upgrades. At least provide some additional detail to where the citizens will know where those dollars are planned for. Of course, this is not a roadmap in which the direction cannot change. We've in the past reallocated funds from other projects, which very well may be the same pathway taken in this case, but it is important that at the onset we know exactly what those dollars are planned for. I think that will also help the commission make those final decisions when we have to start cutting those projects that end up being crucial.
All right. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dowse, what type of projects are we able to propose? Is there like any type of restriction on what we can propose?
Sure. So SPLOST dollars are mainly sourced for your capital upgrades, improvements, as well as new construction. So I would caution you to stay away from projects that are operationally based.
Okay. And the timeline for this, when do we need to have some type of package ready to be approved?
What do we say, the fall? We projected the fall of this year to be able to present to you a listing. So then in the winter, January of 2025, we'll start having our community engagements so the community can start to weigh in. I'm sure there's going to be some ideas from the community as well. But with a November 25 vote, we definitely want to make sure, back to your earlier point, that the community is aware of what those projects will be, what we are proposing, and how it will affect their community.
Okay. And how many workshops are we going to have between now and the fall? Are we going to have a few, or are we just talking, this is just like a
I'm
preliminary?
glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to suggest, since Administrator Dowse suggested, item 1 and 1A, I'd like to suggest we doing a workshop on, the infrastructure asks, and then do another workshop after that for facilities, just so we can judge and kind of, just see what kind of money are we looking at there, and help us judge. And then I think that'll help us make the decision, as Commissioner Williams was talking about including
Qualify.
NGOs or not.
And Commissioner Garrett, thank you. That's exactly what our plan is. If you notice, SPLOST has broken down into various funding allocations. You have public safety, quality of life, general government, total infrastructure, government facilities, economic development, and then, of course, the city of Blythe and the city of Hepzibah. So yes, we will have specialized work sessions in which those departments that fall under those particular categories will be able to present to you their slate of their proposed projects. So you asked how many. I'm guessing 4. It very well may be a little bit more, but 4 at least.
Commissioner Guilfoyle?
Yes, this for I guess, Donna or Tim, as far as City of Hepzibah Blythe, don't we give them a percentage, or is it just a hard number?
It's allocated by population. Go ahead.
The numbers that are in this package are based on population, and usually we'll start at the population level, and we can tweak that a little bit, but it is pretty much based on population.
Can you kind of shoot us an email to kind of give us idea if it's based on population, what are they looking at based on the $300 million?
It should be in the last page of your, oh, I'm sorry, I'll get you.
You
I'll
have
get
a
that to the
different package
administrator.
than we do.
But they
He
also have
does.
to submit projects too.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
No different than,
Yeah.
Well, for Hepzibah and Blythe, we give them we will ask them to submit a list of projects because we need that for the resolution and the bond documents. But after the referendum is approved, we just send them a check. They're responsible for their own projects.
Right.
absolutely.
And Commissioner Guilfoyle, excuse me, our estimates have Hepzibah projected at $6 million and $1.1 million for Blythe.
Do you know
Based
what-
off $235 million?
Based off of their population.
Yeah, they got, I know City of Hepzibah got more than that. I think they got 7.5 and 8.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
estimate.
because they got
Estimate.
7 or 8 million when I was there last time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, if there's no further comments or questions, I guess we can call this workshop to an end. Well, and I guess before we do end, Madam Administrator, what would be a good timeline for the next workshop on infrastructure?
I suggested after Masters Week
Okay.
because infrastructure is heavily surrounded with engineering.
Ms. Bonner, can you help schedule that for us?
Yeah, I'll get with Ms. Bonner for a
Okay.
date.
All right. And with no further business, thank you all for being here for this workshop.